It's the Rangers Journal night.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Rangers Journal. It's Monday, the 14th of July. We're only 8 days away from Rangers starting the 25-26 campaign against Panathinaikos at Ibrox. So delighted to be joined by three esteemed guests this evening. First of all, the gaffer, Scotty, how you doing?
Aye, not bad at all, Colin. Not bad at all. How's you, all right?
Yeah, we're doing well, thanks. Yeah. Billy, mate, how are you?
Good, mate. Nice to be on with you for the first time. But yeah, okay. We'll get through this. I guess this little deep dive into the pre-season and hopefully come out with a little bit of more hope than I've got at the moment.
Absolutely. We'll do our best. We'll do our best. And Ryan, how are you, pal?
Doing fine, buddy. Doing fine. Just back from my week's holiday, so feeling refreshed, re-energized and ready to go.
Excellent. That's what we like to hear. Okay, Scotty, let me come to you first then, because I want to pick your brains on this. Before we specifically go into Rangers pre-season this year, I want to ask you, what do you consider to be a successful pre-season? Are you one of those guys who would say, listen, just get minutes in the legs, keep everybody fit and healthy, and then ready to rock? Or are you one of those guys who would say, let's get 4 or 5 wins, get the winning mentality going early?
But both, I would need to say. That's your ideal pre-season, isn't it? Is to get fitness and minutes in the legs. But also, ideally, you want to see in pre-season as your striker who's going to start banging in the goals. It's always a good start if you've got a guy in pre-season who is on fire, grabbing the jersey, making a claim for a shot. We've not really seen that due to international reasons and whatever else, but there's been an awful lot of uncertainty around about the other two strikers' future. But back to your question, ideally I like a mix of everything. I don't think we've had a successful pre-season since Steven Gerrard was here. I think he ran his pre-season probably the way I would like it, but the preparation this year, it probably isn't down to Russell Martin. I think a lot of it's down to the takeover.
Yeah, definitely. Billy, before I come to you, I wonder if Scotty could put up the graphic for our most recent pre-season results, because also over the course of the next hour, we're going to take a deep dive into our pre-season preparations, what's been positive, what's been negative, what would we have liked to have seen maybe, and what's stood out. So I wonder if I can come to you first, Billy. What have you made out of the fact that we've only had one official pre-season game? Now, you'll see there, obviously, we've had the 2-2 against Club Brugge. They had a game against Barnsley down at St George's last week, and obviously we'll have Middlesbrough after the Panathinaikos tie, or the first leg tie. So what have you made of the fact that we've only had one official pre-season game?
I mean, I guess if you were thinking of it from the point of view of the guys just need time on the training field to get used to each other and more importantly, get used to this manager's style of play, then I'm all for it. But it's noticeable how stark the pre-season friendlies are this season against even, the last 3 or 4 before that. There's basically 2 real ones this season, and we've not even had one of them yet. So there's been one real kind of main pre-season friendly. So I mean, maybe this is just something that they want to do to have more time on the training field. I think you mentioned that in your kind of intro section, mate. But how do I feel about it? Is I'd like to have seen more actual games, not just from a point of view of I'm missing the football, but just to kind of see where we're at. Because I mean, 2-2 draw with Club Brugge, I think that's respectable pre-season result. But a 1-1 draw with League One Barnsley, we don't, we don't know where the team really is. And to be fair, I think Curry's made a point there that we look weaker than we did at the start of last season, which I 100% agree with him on that. And that's the worrying thing, was the absence of actual any evidence of how we are is the main probably reason we're being a bit negative. But also 2 draws don't fill you with a lot of confidence, especially when the new manager isn't going to get a lot of time. He wasn't the first choice of pretty much the 99% of the fans. So if we don't start well, this is going to all fall on his shoulders, I think.
Yeah, so before I bring you in, Ryan, RFC72's made a really good point there. He's saying, I don't really care about pre-season results, but more on performances. And if we can see things that we can take forward, we're seeing that this pre-season and didn't see anything with Clement and Michael Beale. So fair point there, I think. I mean, looking at that graphic, Ryan, it's difficult to find a correlation between the pre-season results and the first competitive game. But if I can draw you to the 24-25 season, pretty poor pre-season, and then we went through 0-0 away to Hearts. What stands out for you on that graphic? Is there anything in particular?
Just that we're not winning games. It's obvious to see that. I think it's worth pointing out as well in the graphic that we've got Bruges and we've got Barnsley there, but I think we forgot to mention the new Saints that we lost 1-0 to as well, which hasn't been mentioned as part of that. Don't know if that's deliberate or not, but it's obvious that I'm very much of a fan. Go back to what you asked, Scotty. I'm a fan of. I'd like to see us go a tour somewhere of like Germany, Holland, Spain, and just cuff teams, basically take 5, 6, 7 goals off our amateur teams, semi-pro teams, and just actually get up to speed that way. Winning becomes a habit, regardless of who you're playing against. Winning becomes a habit. Losing and drawing becomes a habit as well, as you can see from this graph and the graphic you see here, that it's installing that mentality. I'd like to see us go a tour, stuff a few teams, get the legs up, take the boys down south to somewhere, a Blackpool, Sheffield Wednesday was a great day out, Preston, something like that. A trip out for the troops, basically go and enjoy ourselves down south somewhere, get a day out, and then a glamour one at Ibrox to finish it off. We remember the one that we beat Chelsea with the Real Madrid one that we all enjoyed, that obviously brought that bit of buzz, a bit of kind of spirit there. I think we gave Marseille a tanking at one point as well. Condé scored a couple of goals that day. So it's all about, attitude, behaviours, creating the winning mentality within the building. If you go to these kind of pre-seasons that we've got here, this is crap. And crap will fall into the new season, and crap follows us about. And next thing you know, Clement's coming out last season saying you're not going to seal the real Rangers in November, basically using October, August, September times pre-season. We don't want that. We need to hit the ground running. We've got a Champions League tie next Tuesday. We need to get this going. And pre-season that we've seen so far just will not cut it for me. I know people saying that they don't matter. Unfortunately, my opinion is that they do.
Yeah, you made a good point there, the fact that the new Saints is on that graphic. And I think there's talk that we're playing Dunfermline and Hamilton, I think, behind closed doors this week. So there's a couple of bounce games behind closed doors, but not quite the same as a full Ibrox or, a proper competitive game in front of a crowd. Coming back to yourself, Scotty, obviously we're going to do a comparison with Gerrard's pre-season in advance of the 55 season. We'll do that in a wee while. But what's the single biggest thing you've taken from pre-season so far? What stood out to you?
Probably Danilo nearly spewing in any training video that I've seen so far. I've seen a guy's really, really busting a gut. There's been a lot of running. It's been a lot of hard work getting put in the training pitch. It's a new philosophy. It's a new style of play. It's something we've been crying out for the best part of 3 years now, I would say, if Steven Gerrard left, is a philosophy and a style of play on the park. But whether it was this one we wanted or not, I'm afraid we've got it. It's positive in terms of what you see on the training pitch, but I would just feel better with a couple of wins, if that makes any sense, Colin. I just think that it's good to build some momentum, especially going into such a big tie. If we were in the position we were in this time last season when we went into the second qualifying round of the Champions League and then into the playoff, I probably wouldn't be as bothered about it, if I'm being honest. It's just pre-season, it's just minutes in the legs, etc. And that's what I'm trying to tell myself just now. I'm trying to remain composed and patient. But the reality is of the situation is that we played Bailey Rice at centre-half over the weekend there, second half. Well, one of our signings tried to play a pass that he completely mucked up and Barnsley equalised for it. And that's, I suppose that's just where kind of I'm that. I can't help it. Critique the team, no matter whether it's Barnsley or Barcelona we're playing.
Yeah, brilliant. Come to you. Scotty's made a few really good points there. One of which is, obviously you'd love a couple of wins pre-season just to get the winning mentality going. I think I would definitely go along with that. We're always going to compare it, these pre-seasons, the last couple of seasons, to, like I said before, the winning season, the 55 season under Gerrard. But before I do that, Hibs and Dundee United have had 5 pre-season games themselves so far. So it is strange. Do you think, obviously Scotty's mentioned as well, apart from, the takeovers maybe had an impact. There's been so much going on at the football club. That's obviously, and it was inevitable that would have an impact on pre-season. But do you think that Russell Martin will actually be quite comfortable about this, in terms of he's had more time on the training pitch. And we hear managers go on about this all the time, wanting time on the training pitch to drill in to players their philosophy and their principles. Do you think he'll be quite happy?
Yeah, I think you're right there. You kind of made the point for me, really, that managers are always banging on about, you know, they don't get the time because there's so many matches, they don't get time on the training field. Well, this is him having a good few weeks worth of time just with the players. It does make me suspicious that he's nowhere near got his actual squad ready when he's playing players out of position like that, playing Bailey Rice at centre half and stuff like that. So that's the worrying side of it, that he's not got all the players that he'll hopefully start the season with or that he thinks he needs. So then how many weeks are we going to wait for these players to get up to speed? That was the Clement excuse again, wasn't it? So really could have been doing with backing them with the, you know, getting as many of the players in. I mean, I'm sure they have got as many in as possible, but it would have been nice to get some more in. But I think just from his point of view, I'm sure he'd be fine. He's getting some closed door games, so it's not like he's not playing any games, and he's getting this time, you know, away with the players.
Yeah, Ryan. Just to wrap up on this graphic before Scotty takes it off. I suppose the other noticeable thing is obviously we're entering the Champions League at the second round phase this year, which means we're earlier than almost all of the last few seasons. You'll see the first competitive game 3rd August and end of July. You know, we're the 3rd week of July. It is a big ask, isn't it? I mean, it's an early big game, and it's going to be a big ask for us to be ready for that game next Tuesday.
Yeah, yep, definitely. I mean, we've been tripped up at this hurdle so many times in the past before. You know, you can reference back to Kaunas back in 2008, as far back as that, which you know was financially devastating for us after being so close to to glory in the UEFA Cup as it was at the time. So it's difficult and it's an ask, but as much as it's early for us, it's also early for Panathinaikos as well. I'm glad the first leg's at home. I'm hoping that we can get our business done early next week and we can go out there knowing what we need to do without having to actually go out and go and look for the result. I'm just thankful that game is going to be at home, and I just hope that the players will rise to the occasion and hopefully it's a packed house for them.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So, Scotty, just coming back to yourself, before we move on to the graphic on Gerard's pre-seasons, I think you and I are one of a few in the group chat who are very much hopeful and confident that Cortez might have an impact this season. There was reports the week before they went down to St. George's Park that he came first in the bleep test. Now, for anybody watching who doesn't know that, I'm sure most of you do, but it's a fitness test basically. And in the Club Bruges game, he did look fit. He did look sharp. He did a lot of tracking back, a lot of covering, but maybe wasn't as impactful as we would want in the final third. What does he have to do? I mean, it sounds obvious, goals and assists, but what does he have to do to endear himself to the fans and nail down a position in this team?
To get the Cortez that we've seen when we first signed him for loans, we need to give him minutes. It's the same with Danilo. It's the same with anybody that's been out with kind of longer term injuries or that's been kind of stop-start the last couple of years. They need minutes and they need to be on the pitch. The problem is they're Rangers players, so if they're not producing the minute one on the first game, then they're not going to get those minutes. It's if you look at progression type players in the past, like Joe Aribo and Calvin Bassey, they both started every week at one point and we end up selling them for fees. Nathan Patterson played a small proportion of games when James Tavernier was injured. We got a fee for him. I just think it's game time's massive, which relates back to pre-season again. It's games give you match sharpness, which gives you minutes. You can run all day in the training pitch if you want, but game time gets you match sharpness for me. In terms of Cortez, I want to see a winger that's exciting every time he gets on the ball. I want to see him taking these men on. I want to see him confident. I want to see him getting shots away, grabbing assists. I want to see him basically the way he was when he first signed, to be honest with you, Colin. I do think that there's a player in there. He just needs time and patience to get it.
Yeah, because you're absolutely right. I mean, before we signed him, he had been sought after. Before he went to Lons, I think a lot of big European teams were tracking him over in Colombia. So really hopeful that he can stay fit, first of all, and get the minutes he needs. Obviously, we're short on wingers at the moment, and RFC 72 is absolutely right. We maybe can't expect him to hit the ground running, but hopefully he can stay fit. The big question, though, Ryan, is having seen the starting lineup And again, this was mentioned a couple of times the weekend. I haven't seen the starting lineup against Barnsley. I think I'm right in saying Cortes only got 10, 15 minutes and Kieran Dowell started right wing. Does that concern you?
Only the fact that I don't believe Dowell's good enough to play for Rangers. But there's an element of shop window probably involved with that as well. From what I can kind of see from the social media platforms and the forums and what have you, Birmingham would take him back in a minute as well as Ben Davies. They're keen to have him. So we've obviously got to keep Dowell fit so that if anything does go happen, and a medical does come round, then he's not going to feel that medical. There's going to be no excuses for him not to leave if a fee's accepted and a fee's agreed. It's just that I wouldn't be overly concerned that Dowell was playing. I mean, I think Cortes did play the majority of the game against Bruges, from what I remember. I think he actually set up the one for Diamandi to score, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So there's definitely a player in there. It's just a case like Scotty saying we've got to get Cortes on the park and we've got to give him minutes, but there's no point in playing him against these so-called jobber teams as well. We've actually got to get him up against top level opposition. Panathinaikos next week's a prime example where he can actually go out and show and hopefully shine. I would certainly start him next week. I think there's an opportunity there for him to go out there and put a marker down. But it just remains to be seen. We're obviously linked with another good few wingers as well. We're just imminently waiting for one to be announced, as well as the boys from Crystal Palace. There's a mention of Asgard there in the comments who can play wide left in Cortez's position as well. So we've got to build competition for places, and hopefully competition will build quality. And it's a case of just it remains to be seen with Cortes. There's a lot of supporters didn't want him here. Didn't want to outlay the £4.5 million. Unfortunately, it's a contract obligation. We had to do it. So we need to just basically make do what we've got. We've got to give the boy a chance. He might turn out to be a superstar for all we know. He might go over his injuries. It might just be one game that he just has a bit of luck and it's, the ball just falls from nicely and he just cracks in the top corner. We'd love it to be at Parkhead and we're 2 each in the last 5 minutes like Eagleman did. But we just need to remain to be seen. But I'm not overly concerned that Dowell's starting over the head of him for a friendly game, to be honest. I think Dowell won't be here at the end of the window. I'm pretty confident of that.
Well, I'll come to you next because I'm going to ask Scotty to put up the graphic on pre-season under Gerrard because we're going to do a quick comparison. But just before he does that, or whilst he's doing that, sorry, the training videos from pre-season and the media team, I think they deserve a shout out because it has been fascinating. Not just the player announcements. There's been I'm being blinded by the sun here, but it's a good complaint. It's been a welcome addition to the media side of things because I always feel like it kind of bridges the gap between the supporters and the players and the club and the staff, of course. When you get that kind of insight into what's going on behind the scenes, what kind of training drills are we doing, what are they focusing on? So what have you made of the methods Martin and the staff have employed thus far?
I mean, you're kind of reading between the lines with a lot of things because I'm not going to out and out tell you exactly what they're doing, what they're working on. It was good to see that picture of them working on set pieces the other day there. So, I mean, that's good that they're doing that side of things. I'm sure he'll have it all worked out, with him and his coaches. The size we're getting to see, it's the hard work in the training, like Danilo almost being sick. It's the jovial type stuff with the player interviews and having a laugh and a joke with each other. So that shows you quite a good side. I mean, it's a world away from when you would buy, Shoot magazine back in the day, or you would buy the programme and you'd maybe see some training shots a bit like what's on the screen at the moment, and that's your whack. But right now you're getting to see what again, not exactly what they're working on, but the type of things that they're doing in training. I mean, it looks heavy going. It certainly doesn't look like other managers that have maybe been accused of not pushing the players particularly hard in pre-season. It looks like fitness is going to be one of the main standouts. But I do think this just because you're good at a bleep test. I mean, I think Christian Daly was the best at a bleep test. I don't really care if Christian Daly was playing for us at the moment, or even at his time with us. But so it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to affect the games just because you can run between two cones at a certain speed. I guess it shows his fitness is back, which probably was your point. But regarding what we're seeing in these training videos, it's just great to see. I love when it pops up in my Twitter feed. Unfortunately, now everybody just reposts the same one, so you end up seeing the same thing over and over again. But it's good when you get a new one, and credit to the club for putting that out because it's keeps you kind of involved with the squad when they're in pre-season.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, just before we touch on this graphic in front of us, just on the media stuff and the optics, how it looks from the outside. Do you think the Rangers kind of social media team, I just want to touch on it because it is interesting. How managers act in interviews, how they come across in press conferences. It is important, isn't it? Because if you look back over the last few years, we all remember, Kashinya and the Bushes arguing with supporters. We remember, like was referenced earlier in the pod, about Clement saying in a press conference, "You'll see the real range in October." And of course, when that didn't happen, he's been asked about it every single week. Now, what have you made of how Russell Martin's, put himself across? And we all say he speaks well, but we are getting a further glance into what he's like as a person, aren't we?
Yeah. I think he's been admirably professional. There were obviously his announcement when he came out at Ibrox with the board that he was being announced as the new manager. There was plenty of members in the media trying to get a reaction out of him because obviously, I don't want to say he was badly received, but he wasn't as well received as previous people have been in the job. And everyone was trying to get a rise out of him, trying to get a story out of him and say, like, you were second, third, fourth choice, whatever it was going to be. And he just handled the situation well. He's obviously been down to St George's Park. He's been quite coy about everything he's been doing. He hasn't really been giving much away. But then he came out and said, we've accepted a bid for Proper. And actually said, right, great. And that obviously brought news to the fans that they were looking for. He's more or less told us in a roundabout way that anyone who's not at St George's Park is not part of the future plans of the club. So then that starts to kind of activate agents. It starts to activate other interested parties that may be looking to come and take the players because he's publicly now said that they're not part of the plans. And he's handling it well. Time will tell if he starts to come under any pressure, how well he handles it in the future. And hopefully it's all good news. And we like to see that he still remains professional and he takes things in his stride. He doesn't get overexcited by things and doesn't, hang himself out to dry in future times. But you look at him compared to some of the other kind of numpties that we've had. You spoke about Kashinya, who was absolutely brutal, to be honest with you, some of the stuff he was saying. I can't even remember. There was one that was a classic. I can't even remember off the top of my head what it was. And then you've got Beale, who just wouldn't shut up. He's basically telling you the team on a Friday night. And then you give Van Bronckhorst, who would give you absolutely nothing. So I think he's doing okay. But as I say, time will tell.
Yeah, like you say, the first test will be, when we draw a game or we lose a game, how he comes across then. But he has come across really well so far. And I do think personally that the social media team are trying to bridge that gap between the supporters, trying to get that buy-in from supporters early, because maybe, we're not seeing so many of the games, like we were saying, not so many friendlies. So they are trying to get us to see, the word that's been used more often than anything else in pre-season, the intensity in these training drills. Okay, Scotty, so you've put up this graphic. So again, big thanks to Doug, who does these fantastic graphics for us. It's not often we like to see a lot of green, but there's a lot of green ticks there. And, you see the difference from what we've had over the last 2-3 seasons to what Gerrard had in his pre-seasons and the correlation between that and the first competitive games. 4 wins on the first day or the first competitive game. And you'll all remember that Scoopy game. I think we were down to, was it 9 men at one point? Was it? I think it was.
That wasn't that game. That was a fun, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, of course it was. Yeah, that's right. So obviously it's kind of obvious to say, Scotty, but massive difference under Gerrard. Massive.
Aye, it's night and day. It's complete night and day. I think Gerrard was just a massive one on fitness. He was a possession-based manager as well, but he had a structure that was hard to break down. That in the end up, we've seen it in the 55 season, but by the time he was finished with, we were just like a well-oiled machine. Really, really hard to break down domestically, and we just tore teams apart left, right, and centre. We went unbeaten that season. That's ideal. What you want to see in pre-season, though, in terms of how many wins you're getting, a wee bit of momentum, and you're starting to. I'm looking at the last pre-season. I was at the game. We beat Real Madrid 2-1. It was Real Madrid B, but we still beat Real Madrid. Cedric and Sakala scored. It's things like that that stick in your mind. It's that's what pre-season can be like as a Rangers supporter. Can be quite good. Can be a good feeling. But Gerrard's pre-seasons were structured, they were intense, they were physical, they got players fit. Whereas when Gio came in, it was more, I think it was Scott Arfield done an interview at the time, he says a lot more ball work related. And that's fine, but then injuries came, and so did Bale, and so did Clement, and never ever really got back to the standards. But I'm hoping, with what I've seen in the training videos under Russell Martin now, it does seem as if we've went back to a pre-season on the training pitch that's very similar to Steven Gerrard's in terms of fitness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Real Madrid result there is definitely the one you would look at just in terms of that. That's got to have given the players a boost. 6 days before playing Livingston on the first day of the 21-22 campaign. Billy, come to yourself. Is there anything in particular that stands out to you there? I mean, obviously, it's been touched on. There's usually a big away day for the fans, and there's usually a glamour tie at Ibrox. Again, don't want to harp on about the same point, but it is unusual. We haven't had that this season. So anything on that graphic that stands out to you?
I mean, if you going back to the 18-19 season, obviously Gerrard's first one, there's only three there. So I guess that I didn't realise that from the graphics. But that was a good point that you brought up about the fitness levels, and you know we want to be put under investigation for how fit our players were during the 55 season. I don't know. The away days, definitely, I've never been able to do any of them, but that is definitely something that, you know, every year you're waiting to see where you're going down south somewhere for a tie. Not necessarily by anybody, you know, huge, but, you know, you're just Tranmere, one of the games there. But, you know, what stands out is for most of the season, 3 out of the 4, there was more games there to see the condition the squad was in, to see how close we were to being ready for the beginning of the season. So again, I'm disappointed with this year's one that we're not getting to see that. But as we've said earlier on, Russell Martin probably would prefer it this way, because the players probably won't be able to play after these games for a day or two again. So, you know, he's left with them sitting basically on either in hotel rooms or whatever, or sitting back at home when he could be working with them. And I think that's probably why that's been this case. I think Ryan maybe mentioned earlier on that the preparations for the takeover has probably influenced it. If that is the case, and it may very well be, I still think Russell Martin will be happy with the outcome of that. But yeah, it was just, it's so, I mean, there's quite a lot of games in the 3 of the seasons there, isn't there? So that's a big difference from this year. Yeah,
there are a lot of games in 3 of these columns. And I was looking earlier on at Russell Martin's Southampton team. So obviously he had 2 pre-seasons with them. The season before they got promoted from the Championship, they had 5 friendlies. I don't think he was in charge for all of them, because I think he did arrive quite late. And then again, the season before they started their Premier League campaign, they had 5 as well. So I think you're absolutely right. I think that all 3 of you are touching that. It has to have been a combination of the takeover, just all the uncertainty around the club, new manager coming in, and various other things. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, if we win the first game next week against Panathinaikos and we beat Motherwell, everyone will be saying, "Aye, absolutely spot on, good time spent the training pitch, excellent." And if we falter, then we'll all be pointing out that they should have played more friendlies. Scotty, come back to yourself. Anything on that graph, that graph that stands out to you? I mean, obviously, I think two of them, there were European games first, which again goes back to the fact that we are being landed with these early European ties most seasons because we haven't won the league. And obviously, we've spoken about it before, how important it is that we get back to winning domestically, and obviously automatic qualification for the Champions League next season if we do.
You know, I think back then, and how low the coefficient points were for Scotland, I think it suited the Rangers to be playing the likes of Scoopy, St Joseph's and Gibraltar qualifiers that early, because you weren't playing a great level of opponent, so you could kind of scrape by these teams. And I think back to these games, and I can't help it, but I kind of use them as the bar for what we're going into next week. And it's probably not fair, but it's what sticks out in my head. And I just look at what we're going against next week in terms of the quality of Panathinaikos, and I think it's too big a mountain to climb this early in pre-season for us. I just can't help it. it's Champions League we're in. It's not the Europa where we're playing a team like Scoopy or St Joseph's in Gibraltar. It's nothing like that. Or even Legia Warsaw for Poland. We're not in those games let you get match sharpness. And unfortunately, the Champions League is part of our pre-season. As awful as it is to say, it should be, but if we can dress it up all we want, it's part of our pre-season. It's part of Panathinaikos' pre-season as well. You can play as many games as you want to try and get fit for it, but it still takes you a month or two to get into a rhythm and a match sharpness. And I just think if we'd had that, if we'd been into the second qualifying point, I would have felt a lot better, because you would have had another couple of weeks worth of minutes in the legs, another couple of weeks in the training pitch, another couple of weeks to get used to this style of play. That's my biggest worry going into this game, is the style of play. I don't know which way he's going to go with it. I remember him. Obviously, I watch a lot of Leeds United, and I remember Russell Martin coming to Ellen Road, and I remember sitting down to watch a game at night and thinking, this is going to be a banker for Leeds, because Leeds press high up the pitch, like they play out for the back, laddie-dum. And he came and he sat back with, it was a 5-3-2 he played. He still played the same style of play, but they were very hard to break down, and they were very good going forward, and they scraped a 1-0 win, but when they went forward, they played Leeds off the park. Leeds had the ball, couldn't break them down. So I'm hoping that he's been able to instill some of that mentality as well, and he's still got that kind of adaptation in his managerial locker, because we're going to need it, being brutally honest, because it's a tough task we've got next week.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Billy, just before, Scotty, you can take that graph down now. I remember when Gerard came in that he spoke about how your robustness and your general level of fitness for a player is built up through pre-season. You know, if you don't do a full pre-season, you're constantly trying to catch up throughout the rest of the season. Now, we have had major issues over the last 2-3 seasons at a bare minimum, probably longer, of having a spine of a team available for almost every game. And as much as James Tavernier, and I'm sure the chat will probably go nuts at this, but as much as we talk about James Tavernier and his performances haven't been great or whatever at certain stages, he's constantly available. We need more guys like that. Now, you speak about the likes of Ridvan. There's others who are just kind of frail. How important do you think it is that they have that robustness and that we have that spine available for the majority of the season?
It's really the reason that teams win are successful, aren't they? Or they win leagues and win cups. So they have the good players available to them for the majority of the season. Whereas for too many times we lose. We don't even have a striker for the UEFA Cup final. They're playing Joe Aribo in there, so it's plagued us for long enough. So yeah, it's vitally important that we have his players that he's going to rely on week to week are the robust ones. And you're going to get injuries from time to time, but someone like James Tavernier, even Connor Goldson showed you that you could stay fit and still play most of the games. So yeah, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, coming on to you yourself, I was just double checking there was no 7 o'clock announcement for Gassama, unfortunately not. So maybe 8 o'clock. Obviously, we know he's coming in. Hopefully, we'll get another winger in. Now, the Thursday, 17th of July, this Thursday is the deadline for us to register our squad for the Panathinaikos game. Now, I'm led to believe that we can make up to 2 changes the night before the game, so by next Monday evening. So there will be time for us to do some business over the weekend as well in advance of that game. Although it's questionable whether Russell Martin would throw somebody in. But John Suter, where are you at with John Suter? So the reports are that if they're led to be believed from Turkey that they've bid, Trabzonspor have bid up to 1.3 million. But where are you at with John Suter?
The fee's too low for me. I know he's in the last year of his contract, but anything kind of south of £1.5 million for an international football player of John's stature's quite insulting, to be honest with you. I'm very much in the camp that we should keep him. But I'm also not in the camp that say we should be starting every week for us, because I do believe there are better options out there. But I would like to still see him being part of the squad. We always speak about this Scottish and British identity that everyone wants the club to have. John would obviously be part of that and reinforce that. We've got obligations that we have to play, or have to name, so many homegrown internationals, national players within the UEFA squad. John ticks a box for that for us as well. We also need to think about planning for next summer as well, because if he does go and we let him go down on the contract, that side of things, we could be looking. We need to tie him down to a new contract. Is what I'm saying. We could be looking at a situation if we don't. Next summer he leaves, he walks out, freedom of contract. Your man from Wolves, Jigger, he's only here on a year's loan deal as well. So that's then 2 centre-halves that we're then looking for. What happens if Cody comes and he doesn't settle and it doesn't work out? What happens if we're then looking for 3? So we need to tie him down to a new contract so that we're not always constantly looking for 2 and 3 players for one position. There's loads of reasons to keep him. There's not actually that many reasons to sell him. There is questions about his ability, and he's, a lot of players say people see still injury prone and stuff like that. But there's far more reasons to keep him than there is to actually sell him. And a fee at £1.5 million does not get me excited to sell, being honest. So extend his contract, keep him. But the question is, does he want to stay? That's the other thing as well, because you might actually find that the reason the contract hasn't been extended is because he's not willing to sign it. So we'll find out.
Yeah. Scotty, I'm seeing in the chat, Curry and a few of the boys, having a go at Soot in terms of him being a squad player at best. I mean, I think we'd all agree he had a pretty average season at best last year. But he is considered a ball-playing defender. And I don't know about you, but I think he's probably likely to start next Tuesday. 1.5 million. If we go 1.5, would you be selling?
I probably would, if I'm being honest. I don't think he's got the passing ability in his locker to play under pressure. I think when teams come and press him, he's got a mistake in him. I think he's a very good long passer of the ball. But even last season, a lot of those long passes didn't hit a target. Is he going to be able to move the ball on quickly? Is he mobile enough to do that? Don't know. Is Fernandez a wee bit better at that? Don't know yet to see. I think you're probably going to be looking at Giga and Tavernier next week playing at centre back, if I'm being brutally honest. I think Tavernier brings an element of stability to back. Comments won't like it, but I just think for what Tav brings at centre half, he's still got a role there to play now, whether that's only for a couple of weeks or whether that's for the rest of the season. That's doing your opinion in it. I just think for the here and now, and we've not got Connor Cody in, and he's not gelled in with the squad or anything like that yet, I think you go with Tav and Giga. Just for the sheer chemistry of it and the level Tavernier's played at. Suter, to be brutally honest with you, Colin, I'm not bothered whether he stays or goes. If he stays, he's going to be third choice, fourth choice centre half anyway. He's probably not going to kick a ball much unless there's injuries. He's not going to be a starter every week. And you know what? Quite rightly so as well, because none of these guys have been good enough. I'm including Tav in that conversation. None of them have been good enough, but I do think Tav is more useful for us next week at centre half than John Suter.
Yeah. Can't argue with any of that. The only point I would make is in terms of the homegrown quota. So we obviously, I think it's a minimum of 8 players who have played in the country and who are obviously come through the academy, a combination of. So good question on the back of that point from Doug and I'll just open it up to the three of you if any of you have a strong opinion or if someone springs to mind. Doug's asking, if Suter was to leave and we were to replace him with another Scottish centre-half, who would you ideally want to sign? It's a good question. Any of you have any names that spring to mind?
No, not really, mate. Probably out of the Scottish defenders, Suter would probably be my top choice. And I'm not saying that I want him to stay particularly. My main concern about him going, you've just exactly said it, is the homegrown quota, and we would either lose a player from the squad if we didn't replace him with another Scottish player, or we would, we need to find one to come in and be someone at least of his standing in the squad. So, okay, maybe not a starting centre back, but somebody that's maybe third choice, and maybe that's not an easy thing to do with the Scottish market.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, just coming to yourself then. On the back four, obviously we've seen different variations of this over the last 2 weeks with the Club Brugge game, also the training drills and also the Barnsley game. So we've got a different feel of what Russell Martin's looking at. It obviously on Saturday against Barnsley, Max Aarons started left back, Tav was right back. What would be your currently, assuming Suter stays, what would be your back for Panathinaikos next Tuesday?
Great question. Aaron's, Jigger, Suter, Tav.
Yeah. Scotty, do you agree with that? Yeah, I think you're on mute. But whilst you're coming on, it's yeah, I thought you might. Apparently, the reports I've read from St George's Park last week were that the two standouts, and this is not just the new players, the two standouts of the whole squad were Asgard and Giga. Apparently, Giga was just every drill, every shadow drill, every small-sided game, when they opened it up into a bigger game, Giga just looked extremely comfortable, pacey, strong, good with the ball. So hopefully that translates into performances on the pitch for us, because if we have that base, that foundation on which to build attacks, but also, provide a robust defence, I think that would make a huge difference, because as we all know, every successful Rangers team, even the most recent one under Gerrard, it was built from the back. We kept a lot of clean sheets. Scotty, you mentioned this earlier. I think there's probably still two positions that we have huge question marks over for next Tuesday, and they're absolutely crucial positions on the football pitch, and that's the goalie and it's the number 9. So I wonder, between the three of you, I'll come to you first, Scotty, and then to Billy, and then to Ryan. Who would you be starting in goals, and who would you be starting up front? Because obviously, the attack is a strange one in the sense that we've had Danilo training, who's looked sharp in moments and who's missed sitters at other moments, or a sitter, to be fair. And we've had Iggeman and Dessers obviously slightly behind the rest. Josh Gentles has been training and pressing, but he's not likely to start. So who would be your number 1? Who would be your number 9 next Tuesday?
Probably Butland, just for the experience aspect of it. And I'm going to need to go Danilo, because Iggeman and Dessers aren't anywhere near fit, and I don't think Dessers is going to be a Russell Martin centre forward anyway, if I'm being honest. Iggeman is 50-50 a Russell Martin centre forward. Iggeman's a great player, but he's a street football player. Is he going to be able to, is he going to work hard for a team? Does he get that work rate in him? Is he coachable? It's all questions that are unanswered, to be honest. Just because he was very much a moments player for us last season. Didn't really have that team ethic in the building. So I need to go Danilo, because there's nobody else that's fit and that's been playing in pre-season, and I need to go Butland just for the experience.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Billy, would you agree with that?
No, I agree with Butland. He is the better goalkeeper. I think he just had a bad time of confidence, and we also want to put him in the shop window a wee bit as well, for maybe getting some money back on him. But I think if you're looking for 5 million for Dessers and 5 million for Danilo, round about that, if you were going to sell them, but then you're asking teams to want double figures in the millions for Iggeman, then it stands to reason we think Iggeman is the better of the strikers, in my opinion. So I do think, I mean, to be honest, Scotty will have more of an idea on Russell Martin's managerial career watching English football than me, but I think he does suit it. So I would hope about Iggeman up front rather than Danilo. Danilo just doesn't look like a... I mean, he can, obviously, in the cup final against Celtic last year, he got that goal. He can do it, but from what I've seen of the pre-season stuff, he looks off it.
Yeah. Brian?
I would go with the lads backing up Jack Butland. Kind of echo what Billy was saying. I think it's probably just a loss of confidence, which in form, which can be restored. I think Butland probably will go into the season being our number 1 goalkeeper. I think the early signs will tell whether, if the first few games, if Martin decides to stick with him or not, and if his form basically picks up, I think the confidence will be there. I would like to see Iggeman start against Panathinaikos. To be honest, I still am very much in the kind of jury's out with Danilo. I think we all saw his miss against Barnsley at the weekend there, which some of us kind of scarcely believes it, the miss that he had. If that had been Dessers, I think he'd have been getting pelters still for it. So I'd like to see Iggeman start. I struggle to kind of understand how a professional footballer can go from being fully fit 6 to 8 weeks ago to be not being able to start a game of football in the middle of July. Surely there's an element of professionalism got to get in. You should be making yourself available and sharp at all periods of time, given the fact you're on such a great wage to do it. So I would struggle to kind of get my head around how he's all of a sudden he's weeks behind everybody else when it comes to pre-season. I'd like to see him being available for us. But we guess it might well be that Eagleman doesn't want to start for us. It could well be that he's just mentally checked out from the club. So he might well just be that we're obviously sitting here and we're looking at stats and ability and stuff like that. Mentally, he just might not be ready to start. And Martin just decides to go with Neil.
Goblin, can I come in here?
Of course.
Ryan, is that no? You mentioned Danilo, but is that not just down to like pure minutes, match minutes, lack of sharpness, the whole finishing aspect of it? Is it not like just rustiness as a striker?
He's 6 yards out, mate. You and I could have scored it.
Dessers was fit most of last season. They missed the 2 years out.
I know, but that's Dessers though. It's come expected. I just. I would love to see us actually go out and get 3 new strikers. I'd love to actually see us cash in all 3 and go out there and get a whole new 3. I'm actually of the opinion we should actually have 3 or 4 strikers. We've got 4 centre halves competing for 2 positions. Why have we get only 3 guys competing for 2 positions potentially for centre forward? So I'm actually of the opinion that none of them will be here. I would actually there. Eagleman obviously is a sellable asset. Dessers is at this moment a sellable asset. I don't believe Danilo is good enough. I think it's a shame because I do like the wee guys. He's always very smiling. He always seems to work very hard with his efforts in pre-season and stuff like that. But ultimately, I don't think he's good enough. I actually had questions over him before his injury started kicking in.
Yeah, the only point I would make there, Ryan, is obviously we've got 4 and a halves for 2 spots, but I genuinely think it'll be 1 striker position. So it'll probably, I know we had 4 strikers the season we won 55. I think we had Itten, Roof, Morelos, and I can't remember, there was somebody else. Probably somebody obvious I'm forgetting. But yeah, you're right. You need different options. And yeah, in an ideal world, I think we'd want a couple of number 9s in. But you know, it's like anything else in this window. We're having to be patient in terms of the outgoings. There's another, obviously we haven't spoken about Robin Proper, but the quicker he leaves the building, the better. But apparently he's won a payoff, presumably because he's going on to lower wages back in Holland. So it kind of gives us an insight on how difficult it is to ship some of these guys. Obviously, if AK Athens aren't willing to pay the fee for Dessers, if Lille aren't willing to pay the fee for Eggman, it's not going to happen. But just wrapping up, folks. Then it's been enjoyable listening to the 3 of you just recapping our pre-season, and you know, time will tell. The proof will be in the pudding next Tuesday, and when we head to Fir Park to play Motherwell. But any final thoughts, Scotty?
No, I'll just answer this question quickly. If Paul was a focus, is Martin focusing more on tactics and training than games? I think to get the players into habits, I think he's got to focus on a bit of both, if that makes any sense. I think once the habits come, I think the tactics come as well. I think it's all blended under the one big umbrella. I don't know what the other 2 guys would think on it, but apart from that, Colin, superb job hosting, and thanks for having me on there. No
problem. Ryan, thanks for joining us. Any final thoughts from yourself?
No, I just want to keep the momentum going as far as signings are concerned. I think we'd seem to have built quite a decent momentum, and I think we were getting a guy in every kind of day at one point, and it seems to have kind of the wheels have come off of it. I can't understand how we've not announced this boy. Is it Gassama? There, I can't understand how we've not announced him. The SFA have got him registered as a player. So there, what's Curry saying? Is he derogate by a man?
Yeah, he's having a go at the fact that the son's been on my feet. I'm really sorry, folks.
Rumour has it you were going to David's daughter's wedding, mate.
It's not often a boy from Stornoway has so much sun on his face, I'll tell you that. Billy, thanks for joining us. Any final thoughts? Are we going to deliver the title? That's a big question.
Oh, well, I certainly hope so, mate. I think my final thoughts on this discussion is that the squad is nowhere near where we want it to be as regards incomings and outgoings. We've still got players there that we've had offers for and are basically mentally checked out. It's just to sort out the paperwork. And we've also got players that we've signed that we're not even announcing, as well as these other, we've been linked to quite a few strikers over the window and stuff. So it would be good to get these things moving forward. Obviously, lots of these deals come down to the last couple of days of the window. That is the kind of downside of it. So roll on those days as well. But no, looking forward to football finally getting started again.
Yeah, gets the juices flowing. Really can't wait to be at Ibrox a week tomorrow. So big thank you, Scotty, Ryan, Billy. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to all the folk in the chat. Please make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget the boys will be back at 8:30 tomorrow night for another show. So have a good one, whatever you're up to, and remember, every night is a Rangers journey night.